How much authority do you really have as a private investigator or a process server, even as a security guard? Hi, this is Larry Kaye with ShadowAnyone.com and the creator of the Investigator's Ultimate Guide series, which is premium private investigator training from someone who's been there and done that. I want to tell you a little bit of a story, almost a case study, and then lead into what that means about the authority that you have. This is back when I used to do foot patrol in a neighborhood. A division of the city had hired a private security company to do foot patrols in that area. We were tasked with just about every small little petty type thing there is in terms of dealing with aggressive panhandlers, drunks, scooting along drug dealers, or whatever those types of problems might be, escorting local merchants, just checking on things, and being a patrol and a presence, but also dealing with problems. So one of the very low end, the lowest end store in that district that moved in, they changed managers, and I went in to introduce myself to the manager of that store and said, hey, here's who we are, give us a call if you need anything. And she said to me, the first thing she said was, do you carry guns? Said, no, we don't. It should have been obvious, I think, just looking at me in the uniform and that. But she said, do you carry guns? And I said, no, we don't. She goes, well, you pretty much can't do anything then. I said, well, you don't have to call us. So come to find out, she called us more than anybody else, because when you're having troubles, when there's problems, a trained, competent person who knows what they're doing can be a great deal of relief. At least you're not in a problem alone, and many times they can deal with the situation. And that's what she soon discovered, that in that neighborhood, she pretty much needed somebody to show up and sometimes just be the person who would step between the bad guy and the merchant, or the bad guy and the customer, the bad guy and any citizen that had come in there. So how much authority does someone in that position have? That's the type of question we're looking at. So let's start with private investigators. How much authority, true authority, does a private investigator have? Really, essentially, think of it this way. Think of it as having no more authority than any other private citizen. So, okay, what's the big deal with private investigators now? Well, private investigators are licensed, and what that allows them to do is trade their knowledge and abilities and skills for money. So think of it this way. Anyone can cut hair. That's not a problem. But if you're going to cut hair for money, if you're going to be a barber or stylist, then you need to get a license, usually with the state, right? So private investigators, they get their license. Now, that doesn't give them any more arrest authority or anything like that, but it opens doors for them. It allows them to deal with other companies and entities that would not deal with someone just coming right off the street. So as you know, private investigators, a licensed investigator, is going to have access to certain databases and sources and information that a person off the street has. Doesn't mean they have more authority. It's just this, having that license is a way for a legitimate service provider, information provider, to know pretty quickly, okay, this individual they know what they're doing, and they're not gonna use the information that we give to them or sell to them in a dangerous or illegal way. So that's what having the license opens up to you. And then just having the experience of dealing with things is a great benefit when you're a private investigator. So process servers, I would say, generally speaking, a little more authority in a very narrow sense. So a process server is not necessarily going to be going out there conducting investigations, certainly not doing witness interviews and that type of thing, but they are authorized by the court, and generally it's an order by the judge. Many times, if you technically look at it, that's what it is, and the judge is saying, I'm assigning this person to deliver these papers. And while there are limitations on what a process server can do, they do have a good deal of latitude. And many times there's so much process served, so many places, that sometimes there are little rules put into effect to kind of really clarify some of the things that come up more commonly. But process servers are working, you could generally say, under the authority of the court, and that gives them a little more authority in serving that process. And certainly if you've been a process server for any length of time, if there's been a dispute or a problem and you've been the reasonable professional that you should be, when the police show up, boy, doesn't it very quickly cut in your direction. When they see you as a professional, they see you have a court order, you have these documents, boy, it cuts in your direction. So is that a function of the enhanced or greater authority of a process server, or is that just you being a professional and the police understanding this is a person here representing the court, and they are more likely, just without knowing any other fact at all, more likely to look at you and say you're being a reasonable person here, and the other person it just needs to take the papers. Finally, let's talk about security guards. This is one of the most interesting things to me, because they do have more authority than most people believe, and that surprises people all the time to hear that. So just regular straight up security guard, if they're working for a company, or even if they're a contract guard that's been hired by a company, generally they can have, and sometimes this is limited, but sometimes this is just outright the case, similar authorities to the actual business or property owner. And that's granted to them by the business or the property owner. So the property owner may say, here's my guard force can have people removed from the property. They can ban people from the property. So if a security guard tells someone you need to leave and they don't leave, cops end up getting called, the person who wouldn't leave very well could be charged with criminal trespass based on the guard's authority. The guard has that authority given to them by the property or business owner to have people removed. So there's a little bit of enhanced authority that people don't think about. When you're dealing with a guard, you may very well be dealing with someone who has many of the same authorities as the business or property owner. If you're a guard and you have questions about these things, certainly check with your supervisor or check with whoever's hires you. Last but not least, I want to talk about loss prevention officers and asset protection officers. They have some of the more wide and sweeping extra authorities that people don't realize that they have. Many times it's spelled out in law, in statute, by the state law, that they can make arrest for misdemeanors. Now, I have the book, How to Make a Citizen's Arrest, and that's available in ebook and in paperback. You can go to howtomakeacitizensarrest.com if you want to see more about that book. And that's written with an eye towards private citizens like you and me, who may have occasion to make a citizen's arrest. Figure it out, learn it ahead of time so you know what you're doing if you really feel that you have to do that. Loss prevention, asset protection people, these are store detectives and that. While a private citizen may only have the authority to make arrests for felonies or certain felonies, sometimes you have to see it, sometimes you don't. Get the book if you want to know the details. Every state law is listed in there for you. Whereas it's generally for felonies on a citizen's arrest, loss prevention, asset protection people can make certain misdemeanor arrests, and that's usually for theft. Because by time someone steals enough value for it to be a felony, you could steal a lot of stuff. Some places that number is as high as $1,000 or maybe more in other places, but I know at least one place where you have to steal $1,000 worth of stuff before it's a felony. Well, if a person steals $300, $600, $800, $900 worth of stuff, loss prevention certainly needs to have the authority to stop them, even though it's not a felony level. And many state laws give loss prevention that special authority. Loss prevention may not have the authority to arrest people for, say, criminal trespass or other offenses like that, but their arrest authority does extend, interestingly enough, into that misdemeanor category for those types of thefts. If you have anything in your particular area that you know about that you want to contribute to the conversation, drop it in the comments. Let us know about maybe an experience you had or a state law in your area that grants certain authority or restricts certain authority. In the meantime, this is Larry Kaye with ShadowAnyone.com. Remember, do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing.